Great, how are you? I didn't make it to the producers. I know we're
How is she?
doing pretty well, actually. Finally got it. Careful, these are long. She's feeling great. She's getting better.
Yeah. It just takes time. It's so hard when you're used to having to have locations.
And not being used to.
That was the
7 years between the doctor.
Unless that's what she had. That was the tipping point.
Gotta look
Oh yeah, that was, yeah, so keep that in mind when you think you ate something.
Right.
Yeah, good for her. 102.
Yeah, nonsense. Yeah.
It is.
Okay, welcome, special welcome to our PHS students. We're going to see very exciting and invigorating discussion of the city budget. We're happy to have you here. We really are. We need you to be engaged. We have engineering, we have finances and assessor tonight, and is obviously at the library for the DRI meeting. But we're going to start off with a recap of the discussion about the water mains costs, and Paul's not here, but a discussion of the grant too. So, do you guys want to?
Well, he presented, or everyone kind of got together to present the work so far regarding the grant application, and Kevin presented the revised capital plan for Lake Country Village. And I guess the gist, and you know, Josh, chime in when I forget something, or anybody who was there. But we talked about the requirements for matching for the grant, and let me see. And there was the suggestion that perhaps we could, Kevin, help me, step up the timetable and consolidate into a couple or 3 years the entire plan, moving up till next year, you know, one that might be deemed just as critical as Maine in terms, you know, as the data supports, because the issue of bonding, whatever we're going to need to cover, is you know, complicated by how far we want to delay doing that, right, Richard? Because the interest rates for bonding will go up over time.
Well, it depends on the market, but right now they do seem to be increasing. And they're
Right.
talking about a Fed rate increase.
So there might be advantage
The
of,
short-term rates are converging on the long-term, so the bond anticipation note financing isn't as attractive as it was, you know, last year or the year before. So if you
Yeah.
go long-term financing, it's still going to double our interest costs at least that we're paying right now.
Could we just back up a little bit to give some structure to this, like in terms of how much money we're talking about for the water mains themselves, and then how much money the roads are going to cost that accompany that work, and then what relationship the grant might have to that?
certainly.
Can you clarify for everybody?
I can help you with some stuff. So let's see, the first thing, I have a brief summary of, you'll see this reflected in our revised capital plan too. But these are the costs, both water and road, for all of the roads that have this asbestos concrete pipe that we're talking about, both on the Lake Country Village New Base area as well as the other side of the county over by the And
Actually,
So this is Kevin Farrington, city engineer.
Hey, thank you.
So it's spread out over 5 years. Tried to prioritize it based on what we know about the break history, and Public Works went ahead and did a condition assessment of the pipe that produced, resulted in this report. We have sort of two different bits of information to kind of keep it simple. One is, of course, the break history, which I refer to it as dots on a map. And then the second being this study that assesses the condition of the pipes. It tries to do this underground evaluation using a technology to tell us how the pipe's doing, is it thin, and what have you. And I actually took the two maps and I overlaid them. And they do, to a large degree, again, keeping it simple, to a large degree, they coincide. Not perfectly, but to some degree. And by that I mean the report summary categorizes them into red, yellow, green. Red being bad, thin, and then green being good, yellow being in between. And for example, we know that Maine, Maryland, Kansas, Kentucky are the problem areas, and both of the data sets reflect that condition. Maryland, for example, is almost all red. That's where we've seen a lot of breaks. Kansas or Kentucky is almost all red. We've seen some breaks there. Maine, same thing. There's a couple of things that are anomalies that stick out. For example, the north part of Maryland, we've got sections that are green and we had some breaks. So like I say, it doesn't coincide perfectly. There's still some unanswered questions that are going to be there. But we have that data to go on. So given all that data, what I did is I did cost estimates for all of the roads in question that have this asbestos-containing material in the pipe. And I spread it out over 5 years based on the best information we have. And we've prioritized Maine Road is the first, followed by Maryland and Kansas and Kentucky. And then years 4 and 5, we jump on the other side of the road. We do Nevada Oval and New Hampshire. You can see the numbers there. There's some pretty significant numbers. The first 3 years ends up being about $6 million. And one of the things we talked about with the grant was to kind of go big, and their grant request is $6 million. So we thought, well, let's take our first 3 years and let's go for that and see what comes back. And if we come back with a nice amount of grant money, then we can really get moving on that stuff. Or if you'd rather spread it out over time so as, to have incremental costs and not have this big sticker shock in year one, then we can do that too. The way I've got it set up now is to do just Main Road this coming up year. And that's a pretty good chunk. You can see that we've got $1.8 million worth of, almost 1.9 in just the road, plus another $660,000 worth of water main. So it's a good chunk of change just on Main Road alone.
Kevin, can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
With regard to accelerating, what impact does that have on other projects that would be going on? If you wanted to ramp up and to do more faster?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question, because we do have to factor that in. I'm anticipating that we would do this design in-house. If we're going to do all of this, like one of the things, for example, is we have to get the survey done. I only have the survey for Main Road right now. So I would have to get one done for Maryland, Kansas, Kentucky. So it'd be a little tight by the time, if I put it out right now, got somebody out there, they can do it in the cold weather and everything, I gotta get it back and do the design, get it out to bid. And so, worst case scenario, we might have to get a little consultant help, help us with this project, or, one or two.
Now, are you talking about, just so I'm clear?
Yep.
Right now, 2017 has Maine,
Right.
okay? But you're talking about the possibility of jump starting into Maryland and Kansas and Kentucky in 2017?
Correct. These numbers are conservative. They're a little bit high. The actual amounts should be less. Everything should be under budget. I did include the road work, although we will have to, I included it with a lot of anticipation of doing a lot of road recycling, which is significantly less than reconstruction, because we're able to recycle some of those materials. We really have to get into there's a lot of unknowns. We have to get into the design to really know this. In the really good roads, there's some times where we can just trench, do the water line, patch it, and it's fine. Sometimes though, you trench, 12-foot wide trench, and then you do all the service laterals, and by the time you're done with all the trenching, there's nothing left of the pavement. And sometimes, in a lot of these, when the Air Force turned this over, our survey maps have always been questionable, especially these roads are winding. And yeah, you have two valve boxes where you know where the valves are, but then is that a straight line or is that curved with the road? We don't fully know, and we won't fully know. We can do some test pits to add information in critical areas, but as we get into the design, we'll be refining some of these questions. So these numbers are, I think, conservative, so we should, and potentially very conservative. So our actual numbers should come in at or less than the numbers I've proposed for budget reasons.
And when we met with Kevin yesterday, he clarified further that this also in the road cost includes new curbing and sidewalks. So if you didn't know that, I wasn't entirely sure about that.
Selectively as appropriate, so like, for example, Main Road, which we've had much discussion in the past year, some of the sidewalks there are new and are fine. Some are either in terrible condition or missing altogether. So Maine, for example, we looked at, it's about $140,000 worth of sidewalk, and that's selective to do only what's needed.
So right now, you're looking at conservative $6 million.
Right.
So what about the grant? You're saying max, potentially the grant could be $6 million, is that what you said?
$6 million with a 50-50 split, as I understand it. So if I understand it correctly, that would be a $3 million grant with a $3 million city match.
And that's just for roads, not for water.
Correct.
Right, water would come out of the water fund.
Exactly. With a potential,
Percentage to the roads too?
well, no, a percentage, it may even be a percentage of a raise in the utility to help pay for it.
Right. Ratepayer, but isn't it possible to have at least a portion of the road work funded through water?
Yes. Arguably, when we do, like, for example, on South Peru Street, last year, we did 300 feet of sanitary sewer. The road was in good condition. We trenched and did the sewer work, put it all back together, neat saw cut line, and in a road, and then paved the road. That is legitimately all sewer fund. Stop me if I say anything incorrect. But that's a legitimate, that was a sewer work, and so restoring that, cutting that, and then backfilling and restoring that is legitimate sewer work. So to some extent, depending exactly on the approach we take and how we're doing, to some extent,
So,
Can I just interject, please? From the cover sheet that Paul sent us, it said that water projects are also covered in this grant. But we discussed how it would make sense to do water bonding, but, that's up for discussion. This is according to how we want to allocate the funds or, figure out the funding.
so using the water funds, and how much do we have available in water funds? Okay.
That's one of the decisions. My understanding is the grant has a $3 million cap on it. So you could borrow some water money and use some of the grant for the rest of the water money and bond all the road stuff. Or you could bond for all the water mains, use the grant money for the roads to offset the road costs, or a combination thereof. So you have to make a philosophical decision or a strategic decision about how you want the cost to hit.
Yeah,
General fund, water
or
fund,
the,
or parking fund.
right.
Sorry.
So then what would be, to me, what we essentially need is a simple breakdown of what is the cost over time and how it's apportioned through either bonding through water or bonding through the general fund.
Water would be 20 years, general fund for roads is 15 years. That's the probable useful life that they attach to those.
But even if roads were financed through the water fund, it would be a 15-year.
Yeah. Oh, they would be.
Now, these are today's costs, obviously.
Yes.
So if you do something 4 years down the road, the cost could increase.
Yes, and that's a very good question. I actually did, I added a small percentage to the ones that are out in year 4, 3, 4, and 5.
But
Yeah.
you also have to consider the repair work that will be done.
Oh, I know.
In
That's-
postponing it too,
Well,
yeah.
I'm not for postponing, I'm for,
Okay.
from everybody that I've heard, and I'm only gonna be around for 6 more weeks, so I don't know if I can do it. But everybody that I've talked to, I know a lot of people that live on all those streets, and there's not too many that have it. So, I mean, if we're smart, and if we want to take care of the taxpayers, I think we should do it as soon as we can. If I lived there, I would want to. I wouldn't want to be, and you've done a lot of work to prioritize it, but so what happens in your prioritization when you get into New Hampshire, all of a sudden you find 10 breaks in New Hampshire next year? So if you don't do it, I understand, so that's great work, but I think we should jump on it as soon as we can.
Well, and this is where the philosophical, actually the monetary part, this is where our fund balance policy comes in. That it should be a guiding factor in making a decision like that, because we don't want to increase. In fact, we're trying to build that to general fund, so that would be where we would let that become a part of a guidepost to how we borrow the money. That's what I think.
Well, on the other hand, we have an emergency that will only get worse. And, there are plenty of other things that we're considering, such as the marina expansion, that we'll have to, incur costs for.
Well, but if we don't have to borrow money for the general fund, we can do it through water bonding, then we take care of the emergency, and we don't hit the general fund.
So the fund balance.
So we still get the work done, but we do it through.
We're talking about the water mains.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
What's your suggestion?
Or
So
if
you're
not,
talking-
if we can use any of the grants to pay for the road, right?
Right.
If-
Okay, I get
Pay
it.
for the road and then water.
Uh-huh.
If you,
Yeah, the main.
if you look at the first 3 years, it's about 6.2 million, and about 1.6 of that is water work, and about 4.6 of that is road work. So one school of thought would say, well, that 1.6 should come from water funds. And stay, that way you're keeping that away from the general fund contribution.
Right.
And the other 4.6, you, depending exactly how, you get your scalpel out and you fine tune what is a legitimate water fund cost and what isn't. And then, the remainder, you don't have a choice. It's got to be a general fund contribution.
Right, so if we have, it's 4.6,
Mm-hmm.
if the portion of it could be something from water, that goes back into that bonding,
Mm-hmm.
and then that gives us the grant to, pay for a solid portion to not take a hit on the general fund.
Mhm, right, exactly.
So,
I just misunderstood what you
That's
said.
great strategy.
Let me ask, we hear reference to Lake Country Village. Is it solely lake, or do we go outside
No.
of?
It-
That's
No, New
a small
Hampshire.
segment.
Yeah, Louisiana, Kentucky,
So it's
Maine,
all of the city out there?
well, that has this asbestos piping.
Right, that was the next question. What's the
Is
other
all the streets I mentioned, currently, we use ductile iron pipe. But you'll find cast iron, and you'll find
Wood?
steel pipe and,
So the history with the problems is solely with one particular pipe? Or is it
it would
a mixed bag?
it appears that there is a problem directly correlated with this asbestos-containing material pipe.
Okay. So
And
this
I-
addressed only that pipe?
It's correct, right. Yeah, because, I mean, we do, it's a good point. You know, you look at this study we had a number of breaks on New York Road this year. So,
Which is,
not ACM pipe. Oh, it is ACM. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so I don't have that in my, we need to talk about that, because I do not, okay. But, yeah, it's the ACM pipe that we're focusing on right now, because it seems to be a problem. We don't know if the, you know, it just got to the age where it's fatigued, and, you know, it's purely a material issue. We've been, you know, putting our heads together, trying to figure out if there's any other related issue, but we haven't found any. There's a slight increase in demand, but it's still less than what you had with the density of Air Force housing. You know, you had less demand then, so why now? Is there problems with pressure? We don't see any obvious, there's no change in pressure that's obvious. There's no dead-end pipes or closed valves that we're aware of. There's no air entrainment that we're aware of. So we don't see any other problem other than the age of this pipe. It's just fatiguing.
now is this pipe also in the town property that's out there?
They do have some.
And do they have the same problems? They do.
And Paul seems to think, too, that this is a federal grant and that it is specifically geared towards those communities that have had some kind of hardship associated with something the federal government did.
So we inherited the problem, they're gonna help us fix it.
We feel like we have good standing based on the terms of this grant.
We also talked to contractors that used to work for the air base prior to the city taking it over, and there were a tremendous amount of breaks out there on that type pipe. So this is not, you know, because we took over Lake Country Village.
No.
That pipe has also had issues when it ages, pressure fluctuations, okay? So.
We inherited
had
the problem,
problems.
you're gonna help us fix it.
And Lake Country Village inherited some problems. You know, all those cul-de-sacs are privately owned by the homeowners association. They took over that utility. So just like we took over some of this ACM pipe, they also took over some ACM pipe, and I know they're talking about that too, so they.
Yeah, they're hoping to get in on the grant.
And
So,
why are
that'd be
the
good.
fire hydrants on the cul-de-sacs, why are they boxed in?
That's a question for the Lake Country Village. I addressed that about 3 years ago. And they didn't want to, I don't know, they had an idea that if they ran the hydrants, they may break the lateral that feeds the cul-de-sac.
So are they the same type of, well, this can.
Yeah, they're
Same type
regular-
of.
they're regular fire hydrants.
Okay, I thought maybe they were like a smaller,
No,
different
they're-
type. The
They're a
company
regular
was different.
hydrant that's out there. They decided to cover them over and not use them. I had a discussion, but nothing happened, so.
Would that have any impact on our project?
No, that's all there, that's the Lake Country Village's issue.
Okay, thank you, that was very edifying. Anyone
Well-
have anything else?
So we need to, for the purpose of the grant, approve the capital project that we, in which we demonstrate how we're planning to match the funds. So I guess we could just ask for a write-up of whatever we want, which I hope is,
Does it have to be, do we have to have the detail of the allocation of the grant to distribution system versus the road work?
I think, and I'll confirm this with Paul, but yeah, I can provide all the cost estimate information that Paul needs for the grant. That's not a problem. I think, I want to say, and I'll confirm this with Paul, that you could probably just simply adopt it as part of the 2017 capital plan. Now, if you want me to, well, right now it's set up so that we have a 5-year thing. If, you know, it's spread out over the course of 5 years. If you want to do what we're speculating about compressing, you know, the first 3 years and worth of work into the first year or two, I think you could probably defer that decision to a later date as well. Maybe wait and see what kind of money we get back from the grant,
Right.
or we can hope for.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Or just, your own druthers and whether or not you feel inclined to do it with or without the grant. I think, and again, confirm with Paul, but I think you would be safe to defer that decision until the 2017 capital plan.
What if we don't get the grant?
Well, then we have to do something.
Right.
Yeah, I know, this is our first shot.
But let's try to get the grant money.
Oh, let's hope.
I don't know, maybe it was just my bias that gave me this impression, this is what I wanted to remember, but I thought I remembered there needed to be the time, the actual timetable in which we decided we were gonna do things, but correct me.
Well, he can certainly write that into the grant.
Okay.
And then we can, adjust our plans accordingly. If we're going to be if we're going to promise a certain timetable, then we'll certainly do what we have to do to live up to that
I got the
timetable.
impression from Paul that he needs to get our blessing that this is something that we want to do before he
Just
writes
generally.
anything. Right. So I'm not sure if that's a.
So it doesn't have to take any particular form, it just has to be a plan.
Right.
Okay.
Does that require a resolution by the council?
Not to my knowledge. I think he was just looking for some direction, like, do you want me to apply and for how much, and a resounding yes.
If he
We're not gonna
needs,
vote here, but I think the
Yeah.
sentiment is.
Yeah.
if he needs anything further from us, then he can communicate.
Okay.
If you could communicate to him that we all seem like
Okay.
we're on board.
We would really love to have some grant money to fix the distribution system.
I will convey that to him first thing tomorrow, or Monday morning, I guess. Of course, he's at the DRI meeting, or he would be here now.
Absolutely.
Okay, and whatever, if in fact he needs something more official or an end or the details in terms of the plan, the time frame in which it would be carried out, so
Okay.
just let him communicate that to us.
Certainly.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kevin.
Appreciate it.
Kathy, let's start.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay, this is Kathy Livingston.
Thank you.
For our
Hi.
Live streaming. I feel it.
We're not live, are we?
Yes, we are. Don't get nervous.
It only took 3
I know. Mike, what?
Okay, ask away. Done.
Anything you want, Jen. Well, I mean, the striking thing is to look at your summary since 2010 and
Thank you.
compared to what you're asking for this year.
The only thing I can see is that the telephone will be short,
Okay.
$16.50. I project the telephone will be short by $135. So that's no big deal. And I'm coming close with the printing and the copying together. Last year I had 1,500, last year was 1,557, I'm at 1,210 right now. Those are my only two concerns, everything else is fine.
Okay, the million-dollar question is the assessor's office.
I need more hours. More hours, I don't have
Okay,
enough
so
time.
tell us what you need.
I would love to work 40 hours a week. My office opened my door to 40 hours a week. A data collector, part-time data collector. I need help. And I need a desk. I need some office furniture. Please come and look. I'm all over the floor. My office is a mess. It's never.
Well, it's small, too.
It's very small, but hey, it's a workstation. I'm not user-friendly. Everything's on the floor. I have to pick it up, everything at night for the janitors, but there's a lot of work in my office. I follow up on every building permit. There's only 2 of us. We have a lot of seniors. We have a lot of exemptions. Postage went down. I'm not mailing out star exemptions. The star is taken out of our office by New York State last year, so that cuts out in the cost of postage. But does anybody have any questions?
Training and education is going up.
No, it stayed at 15,
Okay.
and I won't go past it. I know. I'd love to go past it. It's hard to be an assessor without the training. I sat in the office for 20 years with no training. An assessor requires training. So $1,500 at this time would be all right.
Now, that contracted services is what?
That contracted services, you see, are broken into two, litigation and my stuff. My stuff for the year was 47, and litigation this year so far, $7,032, but that's encumbrances up until the end of August. I was on the, had 3 or 4 emails today with Mike Hill, so the cost is, yeah, will be in, what do you call, executive session soon.
Okay.
Anybody, anything else?
So the request then for the 2017 is 15,000?
Is that 15,000? What is
For contract
15,000? Oh, for contracted, yeah, I left it this, I mean, I got that number from the mayor every year,
Okay.
and I just left it the same. As you can see, we went over every year.
Yes, because originally 16 was 10, then we went to actual 11, 15, 49. And so the projection was 15, and going into 17, it's also a $15,000. So that's a 50%.
Yeah, and you can see in 14, and we used 33,000 were litigation. Last year, 18,000 in litigation.
So as of 11/18, we're at, well, we're just
11,007.
about at $12,000. Okay,
But billing only through the end of August.
right,
Yes.
right.
So I will go over. Well, the city will go
What
over.
is a part-time, is that,
I started at labor pay. I started at $7.47 an hour.
but that's a person that.
That's labor.
Does what? Is that an office person?
No, it's a person that would go out with a tape measure and measure my house, measure houses,
Okay.
follow up on building permits,
Okay,
change of uses.
okay. So it's
Sketch.
It's light work.
It's like work, yes. My favorite part of the job.
Sure. Especially this time of year. Okay.
That's the part you're gonna give away?
It takes two,
You're just so
huh?
generous.
I take my old job back in a minute. You want to really know the truth?
Okay, is that it?
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thanks, Ken.
Richard Marks,
Richard Marks.
Chamberlain.
City Chamberlain, Finance Department.
Did you get the email last week and copies from Beth today?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there any questions? There's a detailed line item analysis for each of the two sections. Finance section is $382,000 and the data processing section $451,000. Confirmed all those costs. One thing you'll see new in the budget is I'm including the MLD charges for the rent at the beginning of the budget instead of throwing them in at the end of the year and truing them up, which we've always done in the past.
Okay.
The charges for the rent are pretty excessive for that building, but $46,000 for the space that we have and for the condition that we live in, it's kind of ridiculous, but
Can we negotiate that?
you guys probably can. I've had no luck with it. So, we'd like to have the parking lot fixed so that the ponds, when they freeze in the wintertime, nobody falls. I've fallen twice.
Really?
Bill Tracy fell once. And when it rains, we lose 2 parking spaces.
Why doesn't he have it fixed?
That's a good question. If I had an answer, I'd give it to you. I really would.
Okay.
We got the roof fixed, though.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Took a lot to get it done, but we got it.
12 years,
Yes.
but we got her done. So, any questions about the detail of the budget?
Well, let's always go to the special contract services. It's up 114.5, what was it?
Oh, that's because of that rent from MLD. In data processing, that's where that's included, under contract services, and same in finance, $23,000 apiece. I split it between the two. It's a $46,000 annual charge. And normally, like I said, we put that in at the end of the year because they assess all their expenses and they divide out the costs and then they hit us for it at the end of the year. And I've traditionally used that as a true-up budget adjustment at the end of the year, but we can't do those anymore.
Okay.
As
So we're
you're
not
well
gonna see
aware.
that.
We're doing them
Okay.
concurrently now so that we can keep up with that and have no surprises.
So what we see here is something we would ordinarily see, like, okay.
Yeah, as a final charge, that's right.
So Richard, all your staff is okay? You got enough or what?
Well,
Maybe
with-
you just put somebody on,
With 5 typists, we would, but I have one of those positions vacant right now.
that's the one you filled the other one that was.
Well, we've got the second one filled
Right.
part-time. We're sharing costs between rec complex and recreation in our office.
Well, that's right,
It's
that's,
supposed to be a 30-hour, 10-hour share, but it's looking like more that's going to be 25-15, and maybe even 20-20. 20 hours to keep up with the recreation requirements, and then 20 hours can be used in finance.
now I'm still confused about that decision. There was somebody that was at the rec complex, the gym. She got moved down to your department.
Right,
And I was told she didn't want to, but had no choice.
correct.
Now, why did we move her down and not just hire somebody new?
Because apparently 75% of her budget or her cost is not budgeted in the current numbers.
In the rec spot? or-
Right, in the rec spot.
Why? I mean, they got a lot of.
It was a budget adjustment that was made last year
Oh, from the change, yeah.
from the change in 2016.
But then again, I remember distinctly talking about budgeting and rec department looking to get, supervisors, and you can't use that money for them, but you can use other spots, so they took money away from one spot and put it out to put another supervisor. Seems like we've got a lot of supervisors in the rec department, and the high end, and not so many down here, and now we're taking the one that's the low end, and we're shipping it out of there. So is the high end employees doing the lower end employees' work? I mean, if we're paying somebody, example, $65,000 a year as a supervisor or assistant supervisor, whereas the typist would make $43,000. So we take the typist and give her 10 hours or whatever hours, okay? And use her there, but the other 30 that she was doing is being done by somebody making $80,000. Makes no sense to me at all. Makes absolutely no sense at all.
Well, it's my understanding some of those functions aren't being taken care of, and that's why we're not going to get 30 hours. We're probably more likely going to get 20, yeah.
Right.
But I remember the budget discussions last year where there was only 25% of one position budgeted because someone was leaving.
Right.
But I guess that someone came back.
Yes. as a
And so that left
supervisor.
them budget short for the position that we're talking about. And that position now has been pointed to as, that's the one that's only 25% budgeted. So I think there's some confusion there over what was discussed last year.
When she came back back as a higher paid person on the upper end of as a supervisory status. And, I mean, and we had no control over that, which is, for me, I wasn't too happy about that happening.
Well, I'm working with the situation to see, about sharing the position, seeing what we can do to accommodate it, but I haven't filled the other job because I'm not sure what's going to happen with this year's budget since we have such a large deficit to deal with. So I'm going to wait until we finalize what we're doing here, and I can count on that position before I fill it.
So then her salary is getting paid for part-time rent complex out of yours?
Yes.
What about
We're
the
gonna-
benefits? Is it split the same way?
The benefits all get included in one box.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's all in employee benefits. It doesn't get charged off by department,
Okay.
but we can figure it out, whatever
No,
it should be.
I just was wondering how that was,
Yeah.
because when you hire somebody,
Yeah.
they pay someone, then you cost you insurance, cost you
Right.
whatever. And I'm just wondering where that's coming out.
Yeah. So we'll divide the costs between the departments based on the actual hours.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for your answer.
Anybody else got any information?
Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Mark, Finance Department?
Yeah, Kevin was supposed to talk to us. Maybe he's just talking to somebody. Oh, okay.
getting older. One thing, really.
We're almost done, you guys. Councilor Kelly was a little concerned about you back there. How you doing? You learning a lot? All right.
This is probably one of the reasons why you would not want to get into an elected office, you have to deal with budgets. And if you come during the regular meetings, they're a lot shorter. They're not so much.
That's not true.
I'm just kidding.
And that's not true.
It's not true, you're right.
Okay, not much longer. Kevin, very good.
Oh, it's gonna be a long time. I got a lot to talk about.
Engineering is pretty
This is very complex.
No, actually, I'm one of your probably easiest budgets. My total budget for 2016 was $86,000 against the general fund. It actually shows up as 135, but that's deceiving because we took our ADA evaluation and ran it through our contracted services operating budget, the ADA self-evaluation and transition plan. So about $86,000. I'm showing approximately a 3% increase. That's due mostly to salary in the AFSCME contract negotiation and your sort of standard, 2.5%, 3% cost of living adjustment. We have some of our big expenses are the software we use. We use AutoCAD and the GIS software, tools of the trade, and that sort of thing. And other than that, like I say, only about 87,000 against the general fund, and
Look at that. What? Yeah, I know, but.
Contracted services there, Kevin.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear me.
You go first.
No.
Okay, what about your contracted services?
Thank you, that's what I was talking about.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
You just, you budgeted so little for next year. Although in the past, it looks like, well, you pretty much always exceeded that.
the big one was the ADA self-evaluation,
You
yeah.
told us about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was a budget adjustment during this year of 50,000 in this contract service.
Right, that's what we were on.
Okay.
So we don't foresee that coming up again. Okay, so that, it'll all, 50,000.
Right, that's why I say it's deceptively high because of that 50,000.
But we never budgeted for that.
No.
That's because we got the property sale that.
Right. Yeah.
So Kevin, same question I'd like to ask is, what do you see upcoming for your office in terms of the city and things that are going on?
I don't see any major changes. Of course, we just filled our engineering aide position. I anticipate at some point I'm going to have one retiree, but I don't anticipate it's going to be within the next year or two. I hope we're at least a couple of years out anyways, if not more. The software that we use tends to be pricey, and I see that continuing to rise, and sometimes I'm trying to squeeze everywhere else to be able to afford, we have to have AutoCAD. But we save so much money by doing this design work inside compared to what we're paying a consultant with a 3 times multiplier. Obviously, costs are increasing with fuel and salary and cost of living, and I do think it's important to anticipate that routine, regular cost of living adjustment for the different unions, because the reality, and the management too, because the reality is, it's an unavoidable, sort of a necessary evil, if you will, that, you can put it off and postpone it, but if you look at the long-term trend lines, you see that, you end up doing it in the long run. So I think it's just a prudent, modest, incremental adjustment on an annual basis is the best way to keep it under control and keep it affordable without creating any big shocks in the future.
I agree.
But other than that, I see a modest increasing trend line, mostly with, like I say, we're actually using quite a bit less paper than we ever have before.
The environment things.
Excuse me?
Environment.
Yeah, the trees, thank you. Yeah, well, so much of us, we're doing, electronic communications now that we're just not, used to always be hard copy to follow, and, more and more we're getting away from that, so that's one good thing. And paper's expensive,
Trees. We need trees.
Trees, I think, I agree. We need to manage our trees as an asset. I would definitely recommend that we have some type of an operating budget to be dealing with trees, purchasing trees, planting trees. I think, unless anyone argues with me, I think Public Works is the appropriate location for that as an operating maintenance budget.
Under Parks and Beautification, you see 11,660, we budget that every year for tree planting.
Okay, well, there you go. And I think that number has fluctuated over the years. It was quite a bit higher for a little while, and then it came down.
That's right.
But they,
Last year, we actually had $17,000 worth of work done against that budget line. And I think it was 11,660, so we planted more trees than we had budgeted for. But it fluctuates from year to year, the actual versus the budget.
and I'm not sure if we're talking about the same year, we did have a $50,000 grant with a 50/50 match 2 years ago from the DEC, which, by the way, you're about to get a check for $25,000.
I've been talking to some people, I think there's some more matching money out there for more trees.
We should try to go for
Yeah, absolutely, but it's important, and believe me, we get a lot of phone calls about trees nearly every day.
Yeah.
People want them planted, cut, trimmed, removed. One person loves the plum trees because they make plums, another person hates the plum tree because they drop plums. People, but a lot of opinions, a lot of requests about trees, so it's something we are dealing with. We have a lengthy list of people who would like trees, and we don't have the budget to satisfy those requests oftentimes.
I do have a question, Kevin, and maybe I just don't see it. Where does your salary get budgeted?
It is in the salary, but my salary is largely in water, sewer, and water pollution control
I knew there
plan.
was something that it was. Okay.
Yeah, there's a breakdown, yeah. So it's only a small percentage of my salary that's in there. Mine's actually 42, 25, something, and 8. Yeah. 25, 42, 8.
I think he's only 8% charged to the general fund.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Okay,
8 to 10.
That's good.
That's great.
thanks, Kevin.
That's why I'm saying, we're the best bargain in the city.
Wow.
You don't get those trees, we're not
Does anyone have any other questions for us?
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kim.
Do any of the department heads have any pressing concerns or something that you think that we need to know right now?
Yeah, anything that could be a shocker, right? You trying to say?
No, not a shocker, just is there something that we need to know that's going on in your offices?
One thing I didn't mention, in the narrative I gave you about the software upgrades, you can take a look at those and see if it makes sense. The online system really needs work.
Yeah.
Yes, I
that's-
saw that.
It's antiquated, and we can't get it updated from Tyler Technologies. It's time to do something that's modern.
Oh, the bill pay?
So, But it's in the narrative I gave you.
Yeah. Okay, if that's it, then thank you very much, everyone. Back here next week.
What did you guys take an extra half hour before you get me sitting?
Lifesaver, John. It was a
Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, thanks again.
There's a number of things you talked about, so I need a clarification, thank you. It's during the actual council meetings when we're voting, there's two public address, so next week it would be, so then it would be
2 Okay, okay. All right.
I know all this.
The problems that are associated with it. Yeah, I feel bad for them. May have felt that, I don't think any shelters take them I think maybe they and keep people from going out there and hanging out with the rain. There is some level that should have helped, but when we first went out there, loyal we'll show you some of that. I just knew I was going through this process to get it down to. I knew I was trying to legally, we could get them to take them down. In the back of my mind, I thought, this probably isn't gonna help. No way to get them to stop playing horses. Yes, yeah, and, so I understand that. But I'm thinking I might go over and speak to Mr. Ryan and just say, hey, what else? It'll all have to be his decision. Nothing the city can do at this point.
That's their problem. It's not their problem, because it'll end up being the city's problem.
And, it's the Plattsburgh, whatever else is going on.
No, don't use it. I just,
I mean, you think that,
and something has to be done.
his oversight. Yeah, I think so.
No, right.
Oh, okay.
But
I'm halfway north Catherine. On the other side.
and hot and beer go good together. Yeah, horseshoes and city roots. Yeah, so, I mean, hopefully, when the tissue liquor license comes up again, tissue can go outdoor. But still won't stop them from going out to smoke.
Gets away with it.
Yeah.
So everybody keeps yesing
Yeah.
and saying,
Yeah.
Rachel,
Why you got that?
I say the difference between the one that lives.
Desi was saying that
has a
he
problem.
thinks that they're gonna get fined.
You have a responsible
Yeah,
landlord.
yeah.
You have somebody.
Oh, this guy, oh no.
Yeah.
He's laughing at all
Every
of us.
complaint, they're gonna
Right.
get fined
She just got
for it.
3 certificates of occupancy,
thought-
he built another place, and
Whoever is in
and he's
charge
the
of
one
that
that's
sewer,
benefited.
I know, and everybody else is getting screwed.
the manager or
I'll
whatever,
talk to him
will be
again.
responsible for the way those patients.
I, you know, I'll look up.
I know,
Like I
yeah.
did with the
I agree.
property, and I will get the residents, and we'll sign.
Well, hey, you did a good job. I appreciate it. Well, I still feel,
I know.
I
And
still
every
feel bad.
time
You know,
spoken to Dean,
I
he
know.
says that.
I don't know if I shared that story with you. When I went over to look at those shelters and measure this and figure out what needed to happen,
This is
they attacked me.
There was some open
Oh,
hostility.
yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I never felt threatened physically, but I remember we had 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I remember looking at this. Yeah, there's a couple of them that were huge business. I remember looking at them going, yep, those are the ones that were giving this guy back. They felt like they were defending down there, but at the same time, they were,
They're actually making his
they
life
were being an
harder.
example of what, you know, what's wrong with that.
Abdullah, AEDA.
You know,
So I could totally see that their clean issues making noise.
McKenna? That's okay. Oh, Sutherland.
Bobby's Lounge
I went over that with Dean, you know, and I, back and forth on this, recreational accessory use, and we were trying to make this go away. We gotta be ready to try and make it go away everywhere. And, Bobby's an example. Yeah, those were right in the middle of a whole bunch of residential properties, we've never got.
Well, he shuts down operations, you know, at a reasonable hour, and people don't go out there and hang around except maybe the smoke, and that's about it, so.
I got it. I'm gonna send it to Dean and see what he
I don't
says.
know. Congratulations.
What do you think, Joe? Thank you.
Yes, but still, but they were afraid to run this.
I noticed Don in all his eyes, he lost all his teeth. Yeah.
I don't know. She tells me stuff. Okay. I'll keep you posted, okay.
And maybe he will.